It's a privilege to be here this morning, to be back to IFAMA and share this panel with such a special guests here. So we will be talking along the lines of what is being said this panel here in terms of how we might connect with the final consumer. But before I start my content here, I have one question for you. When was the last time you bought something for you to wear, clothes for you to wear? Try to remember when was the last time. And then my second question is, what did you take into consideration to make your choice? Think about that, because actually I have this morning the opportunity to share with you a project that we have done through Markstrat, our consulting business that Carlos was mentioning here, a project done to or for the Brazilian Cotton Farmers Association here in Brazil. So, and their intent was to try to influence the choice of consumers when buying clothes. So that's the journey that actually we started back in 2016, and after or actually almost 10 years, but the project was launched in 2016. So we have 8 years of a project, a story that I'd like to share with you this morning. And actually this is a 10-year story. Okay, so let me see where here, there you go. Thank you. So, we actually, I'm telling this story about this brand called, or a movement called Sou de Algodão. That would translate literally into something like, I'm made of cotton, I'm cotton. And then, what was the challenge? The challenge was, after 20, or the year 2000, actually the year 2010, cotton consumption by the Brazilian textile industry started to drop tremendously, right? And of course, there was an uptake of synthetic fibers. And that was precisely in 2015 or 2014 when we were offered this challenge with the Brazilian Cotton Farmers Association. The challenge was, how can we stop that trend? How can we even try to revert that trend? And of course, we wanted to understand why that was happening. And that had to do with a absence of value perception. So maybe if you didn't consider the fabric, when I asked you how you decided, if you didn't mention about or didn't think about the fabric or the type of the fabric being cotton or being a synthetic fiber, for instance, that was the concern of the cotton farmers here. So a higher price. Cotton compared to synthetic fibers usually would ended up in a more expensive fabric. And of course, there is some topics related to customer preferences, saying that typically, women in special occasions, and women's segment, by the way, is kind of about half of the size of the market in terms of potential. And typically in special occasions, cotton somehow loses its appeal compared to synthetic fibers. But to us, like consultants and researchers, thinking about this opportunity, thinking about this project, it wasn't only about another project. Actually selling more cotton or having farmers producing more cotton in Brazil was a better deal for the country, right? Because we're talking about a renewable material. We're not talking about a fossil material. We're talking about generating income, generating jobs in the rural areas in the country. We are talking about strengthening the Brazilian textile industry because it's such a strategic material for the Brazilian textile industry. And of course, then when you think about the textile industry, it's a whole lot more jobs and talking about urban areas and so on and so forth. But then we had this challenge, was how can we then understand a complex system, thinking or understanding how consumers make their choices, and then how the textile industry makes their choices in terms of fabrics, in terms of their collections. So we had to understand that, and we had to understand that we could do some sort of a marketing pool exercise and tell consumers buy more cotton, but actually there is a whole ecosystem around this consumer in talking about yarn manufacturers, talking about weavers and knitters, fashion brands, brands and retailers that were very important for us to understand how they made their choices in terms of their production. So, as I said, so we had three questions in mind at that time. So how do we decide on what to wear? How do business decide on their collections? And finally, how could we try to influence those two business to consumer, business to business targets? And then we came up with three strategic pillars. And the first one had to do with customer education. After some surveys, we understood that we wanted to understand what's the image of cotton in Brazil, particularly. And we ended up finding that there wasn't an image. So consumers typically wouldn't be thinking about this. So don't be ashamed if, with my questions this morning, you actually didn't even think about cotton when I asked how you decided on what to wear. So we had to do a lot of customer education, where we still have to do a lot of customer education, and talking about this question, why cotton? And then, of course, we want to stimulate consumers to buy more, and then, of course, we want to promote it, and then we say, choose cotton. And finally, because it's a whole system of companies and players in the Brazilian textile industry, we wanted to stimulate these companies to do business together and, of course, have cotton as a context, right? But then, I'll tell you, our first challenge, working with the Brazilian Cotton Growers Association, and then having the opportunity to really put together a campaign or a movement, our first challenge, and I kind of made it the first principle that we have learned along this journey, is we need to speak to our consumer and not to ourselves. And so I very, very much like Carlos' comments in terms of, the coffee consumers are so different from we producers. So for you to have an idea, the first agencies we spoke to, we had some agencies coming from the ag world and others coming from everywhere, other industries, and particularly from fashion. So that, the language they spoke were very different, and it was very challenging. It was actually the very first battle we had to fight, was to convince cotton farmers that we needed to speak another language, because if we want to connect with end consumers, we have to understand, and more than that, we have to do something that is meaningful to them. So I'm showing you a video. This is our first manifest. This video is from 2016. But can you put yourself in the position of a cotton farmer, and we trying to convince cotton farmers that this was the way to go. So please, let's play this one. If the road is getting more synthetic, why can't we be more cotton? I'm tropical, I'm fun, I'm classic, I'm colorful, I'm natural, I'm light, I'm a metamorphosis, I'm smooth, I'm made of cotton. This is a movement that invites you to feel the road like the touch of cotton. So this was like the very first one, 2016, launched in São Paulo Fashion Week. That was the first time that cotton growers went to a fashion week in São Paulo. That was so different from actually what they were used to do. And And then the second principle in terms of that journey was really thinking about these campaigns and these stimulations. We have to be consistent and we need to have a long-term horizon. So I just, we started working with brands and retailers, and we invited brands and retailers to become partners, to use our tag, and to do lots of different things I will be detailing further on. But one thing is, it took us a lot of time to get the first 10, the first 20, the first 100. But after, coming to the number 300, things took off, and it started to make sense. So my comment to anyone that is thinking about these sorts of communication initiatives, if it's a one-off kind of initiative, forget about it. Don't waste your time and money. But if you think in long term, that makes sense, and we have to be consistent. A very important principle, how would we fund this kind of thing? So we're talking about the collective action. Collective action organized by a farmers association. And regardless of how rich farmers might be in certain moments of, typically associations, they are short of money and staff. So how would we organize something that would have a long time horizon, but then struggling with resources? So we made together, and we thought together with the Cotton Farmers Association, and we thought about, so we created some sort of a sponsorship program. So BASF, Bayer, from the very beginning, FMC, Syngenta, and others here, Fendit, Sumitomo, some examples here, and some are here today. So they are the sponsors. So a lot of the resources actually are coming from these companies. So they support the association and somehow join the journey. And then, of course, we had to make it legit. So therefore, creating the bonds with institutions like the Brazilian Textile Industry Association and many others that would make it very legit. So we had customer education and many initiatives. We had promotion. We had business. So these are some names, and I will just highlight some for you. But this is how we actually run the movement today, as I said, through Mark Stratt. And these are some snapshots for you here, some of the things being done inside this movement now. This is a strong social media strategy, professionally managed. I just brought here an interesting post that was probably this week with almost 500,000 likes. Lots of people interested in fashion, and this is like showing a cotton from like the inputs, as you can see on your far right, and all the cycle to the fabric and the t-shirt, right? We actually are very close to more than 80 designers. These are influencers. We bring them very back to the farm, actually. So we share content. They write on our blog. We take fashion brands, retailers, designers to cotton farms. And it's a mind-blowing experience for them. What else? We actually started doing lots of initiatives and partnering with universities because stylists and professionals in the textile industry of the future are there at the universities. There are more than 200 educational institutions somehow related to fashion or to the textile industry in Brazil, impressively, right? And then lots of cotton experiences bring these people, professors, to the fields and challenges. So we have had more than 1,700 students competing with their outlooks, somehow their collections, and then the winner would participate in a runway show, for instance. We say we, the movement, participated in more than 30 editions in Fashion Weeks. It's very important, although we, of course, when we say a movement has to speak to the final consumer, but at the same time, it's very important to engage farmers, to engage the cotton farmers that somehow they have to feel connected to the movement as well. And therefore, engaging cotton farmers has been very important. So my very last piece here is showing you this project that we developed within this movement, which was the traceability system. So other than like printing 111 million tags since 2020 for them to put on their products, we also have the traceability system. And then I'm going to go back straight there for you, and as a, make sure that I use the time here. So the traceability program is, to the best of our knowledge, the first physical traceability system that traces the cotton from the field to the shelf at the store. So I will quickly show you a video. This is a 1 minute video to show you how this traceability is actually done. So please, can you play this for me?
Você já ouviu falar em algodão brasileiro responsável, ou ABR para os íntimos? Tudo começa lá na fazenda, onde a produção da fibra certificada atende a 178 critérios de respeito ao meio ambiente, leis trabalhistas e transparência econômica. Com origem comprovada, o algodão ABR sai da fazenda e vai para a usina de beneficiamento para ter a pluma separada do caroço e das impurezas. Partiu fiação? É aqui que a fibra certificada se transforma em fios antes do próximo passo. Agora, os fios são combinados e entrelaçados em teares até finalmente ganharem a forma de tecido ou malha. E a confecção é a próxima parada. Aqui as roupas ficam prontinhas para serem vendidas. E depois dessa longa jornada, a peça vai para as lojas ou e-commerce. Pronto, você escolhe o algodão ABR e conhece todo o caminho que ele percorreu. Tudo graças a um QR Code e a uma tecnologia chamada blockchain. Sou ABR, algodão brasileiro responsável, rastreável da semente ao guarda-roupa.
Great, thank you. So, Pavinato, as you showed the ABR or the BCI at your farm, our challenge was how can we get that rich information, because it's like more than 170 criteria for you to have that certification. How can we take all that valuable information to the final consumer? So that was the challenge, and actually this is actually what's shown here. And for you, you can point your cell phone, and these are examples of products, traced products. If you just choose one, you can have from CNA, Renner, which are Brazilian retailers, Reserva, for instance. And then for the internationals, there is an English option for you. So you're going to see that, for instance, maybe a T-shirt might have cotton coming from like 15 farms, which is very interesting. They go all the way up to the spinner, for instance, or the weaver and the other players present in the cotton value chain. So I'm just finishing my presentation. That was an incredible journey done with the Brazilian Cotton Growers Association, and I'm just a spokesperson here because there are so many people, like plus over 20 people working this. And right now we have other initiatives, so we're working with coffee, regional Brazilian coffee with certified designation of origin, and kind of trying to replicate this same experience with rice, which is kind of facing the same challenge as cotton. That was it. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you, Beto. Thank you.
Thank you.